I'm Tom Baker, this is Chasing Cars, and behind me here is a brilliant looking small luxury sedan. This is the 2021 Lexus IS350 F Sport. Now it's not a brand new car, it's a heavy facelift of the IS that came before, but as we'll see in today's video, there are still heaps of things about this V6 IS that are easy to like. When Lexus unveiled the 2021 version of the IS, there were certainly a few sad faces in the room when it was discovered that this vehicle is not on Toyota's TNGA platform. Instead, it retains the previous N platform that has been sitting under the IS for quite some time now. But the fundamental dynamics of the previous iteration of the IS were still very good. So it's not really something to be too sad about. All it means is that inside the IS, there are definitely one or two features that you'll recognize from before, and things like the engine lineup haven't really changed, and we'll discuss that when we take this IS350 for a drive. Now, being the 350, this Lexus IS still has a bit of a trump card over its German rivals, which is that it's the last car available in this segment with a naturally aspirated petrol V6, which gives this car a really lovely, smooth and quite old school feel when you drive it. As I mentioned up front, the change for the 2021 Lexus IS is a heavy facelift rather than an all-new model. And so there's plenty of elements of the cabin of this IS350 F Sport that remind you of the car that came before. However, Lexus have taken a lot of feedback to heart and have incorporated a bunch of more modern technology into this interior. Thankfully though, the absolutely exceptional build quality of the pre-facelift version has been retained. And unlike some cars in this class that have come in for a midlife facelift and have somehow picked up rattles along the way, the Lexus IS is not a vehicle like that. Everything is still screwed together incredibly well in this vehicle, and there's a sense of enduring quality in the cabin. Leading the technology changes for 2021, however, is a new screen, which has been brought forward in the dashboard, and that's important because it now has touchscreen capability. That's good because the Lexus Remote Touch trackpad continues to be a little frustrating. Certainly as an owner, you would get used to it and you would understand how it works better, but there's no beating the simplicity of a touchscreen, particularly because Lexus have now built in wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is much easier to use by touch than by trackpad. So that's nice, even if Lexus's own integrated software is in dire need of an update, in my opinion, particularly now with touch. The targets are just a little bit small if you're not using CarPlay or Android Auto. So that's one thing. In front of the driver, we have what Lexus still refers to as the LFA style instrument cluster with a sliding main piece opening up to reveal contextual menus. Now it is still very cool. Of course, the LFA is a decade-old car now, so it's not exactly the most modern piece of technology, but it'll still wow you the first couple of times you use it, that's for sure. We've also then got very nice seats. This car is quite conservatively specified inside, just in black with sort of contrast grey stitching, but the seat itself is supportive, comfortable, and on the driver's side has lots of adjustment, plus also memory for the driver. And heated and cooled seats are standard at this level, as is real leather, unlike the very base model IS, which has Lexus's kind of fake leather upholstery. This is the real deal. Quality of the rest of the interior is also very nice. Lots of plush materials, pretty much everywhere you touch. And then also an attractive steering wheel. The same wheel as the pre-facelift IS, no real change there. We've still got these paddle shifters on the back, perforated leather. It's a round wheel as well, which a lot of people prefer. Ergonomically as well, the Lexus IS is probably this brand's best car because you sit really low in the seat, legs stretched out in front, classic rear wheel drive sort of driving position. Steering wheel's in just the right place, gear shifter's in just the right place. The armrest isn't adjustable, but it doesn't matter because your arm falls just at the right point. So this car was well designed from the very start, and that's something that persists even though the underlying design of this IS is now certainly getting on in years. And in terms of practicality, we've got two big cup holders here. We've got a decent armrest, flock line, two USB ports, decent sized door bins as well here in the door. All right, let's have a look at the back seat where the story isn't quite so generous. Here in the back of the IS, the fact that this is a substantial facelift and not an all-new model means that the same big compromises as the pre-facelift version of this car continue for 2021, And that's that unlike the new-ish BMW 3 Series, the Mercedes-Benz C-Class, or the Audi A4, the backseat of the IS is not what you'd call generous. In fact, it's more like an Alfa Romeo Giulia or a Jaguar XE, which are both particularly compact in the second row, but the Lexus IS in some ways is the worst offender. 6-footers can't fit in the back without their head hitting the ceiling if they lean back. And while legroom is actually quite alright sitting behind my own driving position, there's really no toe room to speak of. There's also a massive hump in the floor here in the center, rendering this seat, which is also a perch, all but useless. So really, the Lexus IS is much more about the two people sitting up front. You've got this occasional back seat for people that you either don't like very much or you're just not going to use it particularly often, but it's not a car that would work very well for families. And because Lexus have deleted or are about to delete the GS from their range, it means there's not really a flexible four-door Lexus with rear-wheel drive, because the ES, which is front drive, isn't going to be to everybody's tastes. But anyway, I digress. We do have air vents back here. That's good. We've got an armrest which flips down with cup holders incorporated into it. We've also got the continuation of soft materials back here. We have a little bit of storage in the doors, but no bottle holders actually in this car. Heading around the back of the new IS350, and I will just comment that I love the looks of the 2021 IS. Design is always subjective, but I reckon they've pretty much nailed it with this heavy facelift. Good looking car, really nice sharp new tail lights, full length bar across here. Perhaps this black lip spoiler on the F Sport is a little bit heavy handed, but it's not too bad. And this infrared color is a perfect demonstration of how Lexus does paint. Super deep, incredibly reflective, just a really great looking color on this vehicle. Then with the boot, release has been relocated to the middle. We've got a competitive 480 litres of space in the IS. Now it's a typical sedan boot, goes back pretty far, doesn't really have too many sort of extra bits of practicality to it, no hooks or anything like that, but you know, it isn't too bad. And then beneath this boot floor here, what we have is a space saver spare in the IS. So you do have a little bit of extra confidence if you're going to take this car out on a country road. But unfortunately, unlike the C-Class, A4 and 3 Series, there isn't a station wagon version available of this car, which would be pretty cool. So the updated IS350. What's this Atmo V6 holdout really like to drive? Well, you know what? I like the IS350. I've really liked this generation of IS as well. And you know, when I saw the facelift, I thought, oh, it's not an all-new car. I mean, Lexus had kind of been a bit cunning about that, I suppose. They sort of held out on the question of whether the 2021 IS would be new or just an update for a while, but you know, it turns out facelift, and that's because we think the next version of this car, which is probably a 2023, 2024 proposition, will share some shared underpinnings being developed with Mazda, but that's evidently not even close to being ready. So still on the N platform, carryover engines, the experience behind the wheel is similar but not the same, because fundamental parts of the IS, including the automatic gearbox, have been retuned quite comprehensively, and that does make a difference on the road. But firstly, quick overview of the engines. There's an IS300 base model, 180 kilowatt, 2-litre turbo, direct competition for the Mercedes C300, BMW 330i. Then there's a hybrid version, 2.5-litre Atmo, petrol 4 paired to an electric motor. Not one of Lexus and Toyota's newest hybrids, so it's not one of their best hybrids, but it certainly gets the job done. But then there's this one, which is the only IS I'd really sort of strongly consider spending my own personal money on because of its unique advantages over rivals. This is the IS350, 3.5-litre naturally aspirated, direct injected V6 engine. Makes good power, 232 kilowatts of power. Modest torque, 380 Newton meters. That's only a little bit more than turbocharged 4-cylinder cars, but it actually needs to be revved right out to make that torque. Thankfully, when you do that, the IS350 sounds really good. It's a much more sonorous experience than any of the turbo cars or turbo 4-cylinder cars in this segment. The Lexus has that classic laid back petrol V6 soundtrack that is just really good to listen to. So coming to a hill here, just listen to that. Oh yeah, that sounds good, right? It really gives the ear something to enjoy as you're kind of punting this sportily styled and sportily suspended IS down a good road. And I think the F Sport is still a pretty smart IS to go for. I mean, it's not exactly a plush spec, but yet the damping is really good on this car, particularly the variable damping on this particular specification. Just left in normal ride rather than going to Sport or Sport Plus, I really like the way the IS350 gets down the road, soaks up imperfections well. It is nice and plush. It copes well with Australian roads, concrete roads, other things that European cars tend to fall apart on. There's a lot to like about the sort of demeanour of this car. Now, fundamentally, the 8-speed auto has also received attention, which is good because the shift logic kind of sucked after they rolled out the 8-speed auto into the IS as a small update in the pre-facelift version. And thankfully, it's now smarter. It shifts up and down where it should in order to take advantage of the unique character of the 350 engine. And while I haven't driven the IS300 turbo yet, and I'm looking forward to doing so, the gearbox is now, really good enough in the IS350 that even though you have to work it a bit harder to find the torque, the auto really assists in that task. So I don't see it as too much of an issue. For me, the benchmark 4-cylinder car in the segment is the BMW 330i, which has a terrific ZF 8-speed. That's going to be hard for the IS300 to beat, but none of the competitors have an engine like this, like the IS350. They can all give you a 6-cylinder, but the 6-cylinder is always sort of positioned as a sporty car. There's the M340i, which is an M performance car, which is a little stiffer than a 330i. The Mercedes-AMG C43 is really quite stiff, and then cars like the Audi S5 and S4 are really quite lovely, but they're fundamentally a bit more serious than this car. If what you want is something laid back but still with a 6-cylinder engine, then a Lexus IS350 is firmly becoming quite a nice solution in this class, and I can certainly see the appeal. Refinement levels are also excellent. Road noise is really well insulated. Wind noise is not there at all, and the engine noise that is on offer is pleasant. So I would say the refinement's very good in this car. Visibility out is pretty good. Mirrors are large. The view out the back window is pretty easy. And Lexus have actually beefed up the safety technology proposition for 2021 quite a lot. So we have junction AEB, for example, which was something they didn't need to put in the car because as a facelift, it'll carry over its previous ANCAP safety rating or previous safety rating wherever you are in the world. But the addition of modern safety technologies like junction AEB is certainly welcome. It's also got lane tracing assist. I don't think the Toyota Motor Corporation lane tracing assist is as good as, say, the Hyundai or Genesis product, but it's not too bad. Blind spot monitoring as well on this car, rear cross traffic alert, adaptive cruise control, and AEB, as well as reversing AEB, which is always good to see fitted to a car. So that's my detailed opinion of the 2021 Lexus IS350 F Sport. A car I'd still be quite happy to buy if what I was after in this segment was a really lusty, old school petrol V6, which is exactly what this vehicle delivers, unlike its rivals, where if you want to go to 6 cylinders, usually you have to accept a pretty hard suspension and turbocharging as well. But I'm keen to know your thoughts. Did Lexus go far enough with the 2021 IS? Were you hoping for an all-new car? Do you prefer the hybrid powertrain? Give me your thoughts down below. And as always, thanks for watching Chasing Cars.